Simões bending one for Torres. Eusebio. Oh my word! Have you ever seen anything like that?
Bem jogado por Simão, a passar por dois adversários. Simão a tentar oferecer o golo a Figo e a bola é gol! O golo de Figo!
Ricosta já acreditou, vai tirar para o golo, atira golo! 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 Cristiano Ronaldo, vai para Cristiano Ronaldo! Chuta! Gol!
And we are live here on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. As I'm having a little bit of issues with my headphones. These are not my usual headphones. I forgot to charge my headphones when I got home, or before leaving home. I was out with family this weekend, out of town, and was going to do this show right after the game. Got back a little later than normal and forgot to charge the old headphones, and this is the situation we are currently in. I'm hoping, Nathan, you can hear me, right, sir?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, and then the folks in the old stream and the chat, you guys can hear me all right? Give me a thumbs up. Hello. We already have Manuel and Paulo again. Hold on. Don't want any more music. That's enough. That's quite enough. All right. Well, yeah. It's not as if I just got home about 10 minutes ago. But a promise is a promise. So with that, we welcome you guys to episode number 95 of the Seleção podcast. We, of course, are a proud partner of Portugal.net and of Palma Media. To your left, if you're watching us on YouTube, I am Danny Pinto. I am your host. To your right is Portugal Seleção correspondent Nathan Motz. And Nathan, I will say this. Say what you want about Nations League, and we'll actually talk about Nations League in terms of the format, because it has changed going into this iteration. But 2 games, 2-2-1 wins. One was an eventual CR7 game winner. The latter today, as we record this on Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. The actual winner, in what I thought was a really fun game, even though it was a little frustrating. But just give me your thoughts on the 2 matches and where you think Portugal stands after the first 2 matches of this Nations League group play.
Yeah, I really love this competition just in general for the competitive atmosphere it gives us to make adjustments, following a Euro that many people felt very dissatisfied with. And I think we saw a little more of the same, but also some changes as well, some fresh looks in these 2 matches. I think most people would agree that the results, maybe, we might want to see a little bit more electricity in the squad, especially today at certain points. But the way that we're still winning against opponents that we should be beating, and it's good to see the squad in good form, in a fairly manageable group in this competition. And I think it's just another good opportunity for Roberto Martínez to work out some of the kinks. So overall, I'm pleased, and we'll get into talking about the specifics here in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah, so let's go most recent to, and then we'll talk about the Croatia game. But let's talk about the match against Scotland. And again, in what I thought, in terms of just solely football aesthetics, I thought it was a really entertaining game. Portugal for the lack of execution in the final third, it never seemed like they were out of it, because they were always going and going and going. And maybe that happens when you're chasing a goal after 7-8 minutes, but it did seem like this group specifically was on the front foot for the majority of the match. And I mean, let's talk about it. Ronaldo not starting, you can say maybe he should have been, maybe, or this is maybe a reason why he should have. I've seen other spots where it's like, you know what, Ronaldo with fresh legs against a team that has already played at the very least a half, that could be an advantage for Portugal. I mean, I'm on record as saying that I think it's a distraction, but I don't think it's a distraction in Nations League. And you could say what you want about the World Cup and the Euros. I think that's the creme de la creme of the competitions that Portugal play in. Nations League isn't there yet, so I think it's less of a distraction, him coming off the bench, potentially going forward in a competition like this, perhaps maybe until the knockouts. But what do you think overall about today's performance?
Yeah, I thought it worked really well. And I know that there's always going to be some conversation about what Ronaldo is or isn't doing and whether he's in the starting 11 or not. But just really zooming out, it's pretty difficult not to be pleased with how that worked out. And there's, I'm sure you'll echo these comments, Danny. There's a certain part of being a Seleção supporter, and you're watching your team play against Scotland at home, and they score a goal in the 7th minute. And there's a certain part of you that begins to break out in that familiar cold sweat because you've seen this before, right? But that's what we might call trauma, right? We're having this reaction to all these historical episodes that we've seen so many times.
It's PTSD, man.
Oh, it is absolutely. but you were right to point out that I think there was a certain sense of control that we had in this match that maybe in years gone by just wasn't there. I didn't like the first half. It wasn't clean. It wasn't as fast either as I was hoping that we would play without Ronaldo. I thought we would be a lot quicker to move the ball forward. There were some moments, but it was the same kind of, half chances, a couple good ones, Diogo Jota's header, Raphael Leão finally getting some shots on target. I was complaining about that during the Euros, some of the crosses finally starting to get to interesting areas in the penalty area where we need them to be. But you really got the sense this team, in spite of their difficulties in the opening 45, wasn't about to let this one get away. And then you bring Ronaldo in, really, and I love the energy that he's brought. He's got on the pitch. They show him right before the kickoff, the second half. Everyone's excited, and you just know it's coming. You just know that's what's going to happen, and it did. And so I think we have to be pleased, and maybe are looking at a sign of what's to come. With Ronaldo being a super sub, and instead of having to carry the squad, I'm into it. That's what I'll say for now. I'm into that. I'm okay with that. He doesn't have to play the full 90 to have an impact. He's had an impact today, and I hope we see more of it going forward.
How did you feel he played in a longer? I think he played up until 87, 88 against Croatia. How did you feel he? I guess I compare the way he looked and played from your opinion against Croatia compared to the 45 and change that he played against Scotland.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been in good form this season to start with. Scored in every goal, every game that he's played for club and country. I get the sense that, with respect to some of the other forwards in the squad, Joao Felix, Diogo Jota, there is still, even at his age, there is still an argument to be made that Ronaldo is more in goal scoring form than they are. I think against Croatia, it was a competent performance, nothing exciting. I didn't necessarily have a problem with him starting, although I said before the match that I would have preferred to see Diogo Jota. After Euro 2024 and how that went, I would have preferred to see him start. But Ronaldo, he didn't let us down. There weren't mistakes. He wasn't. He didn't look slow. He wasn't unlike in the Euros. He wasn't trying to take on responsibilities which hurt the team, which was good to see. But today, the impact. It's all about the impact. He's come in and he's changed the game. And that to me is more important than whether he starts or not. We need players who can alter the course of a match that isn't going our way. Ronaldo still has the capability. Why not use him as a sub if that's how he's gonna if he can get the results that he can like that?
Yeah, it almost opens up a new, I don't want to say final chapter, but a chapter that, again, for me, and I don't hide away from being wary of him being the sub or coming off the bench or being a super sub, whatever it is. I still am, and we may not get this opportunity again, given that by the time the World Cup happens in 26, he may or may not be around. But I think in this scenario, again, I think I'm my feeling on him coming off the bench. Again, I don't have any issue with it simply because I think the Nations League is what it is, and it's definitely the third of the three major tournaments that Portugal plays in, and they are not even close to touching second. So I think the worries that I was having, coming off the bench at the Euros, or even when he came off the bench against Morocco. It always felt like it was a distraction or could be a distraction. It doesn't seem this way with the Nations League. And again, I guess, to go glass half empty here, this topic, I guess, we shouldn't be, I guess, spending so much time on it if it had happened before. And I guess now I'm happy that it is. What it will do or what it does for this squad, time will tell. It's only one game. So, but he looked really good. He looked really good, especially I think his display against Scotland was just in terms of overall quality was better than he showed against Croatia. And I thought he was good against Croatia too. So, yeah. I think you got a little bit of kind of what we can see, what he's not, capable. The guy is amazing in terms of what he's brought to his career and this national team. But I don't know. It does open up this possibility of prolonging his national team career because it's not as taxing playing the 90 minutes, but you're only as good as your last performance, and I got to give him his credit. These first two matches in Nations League, he's looked good. I just wonder if it's because there's a lack of pressure here, given that it's the third of three tournaments.
Yeah, and I think there is a danger if we do get to, say, World Cup 2026, that we become comfortable seeing Ronaldo putting in these type of performances against an opponent, with all due respect, to Scotland, and even Poland, and even Croatia, who are, let's say, they're on the other side of their generational peak, in my opinion. So that's a different concept entirely than, a 41-year-old Ronaldo going into the World Cup and playing against, the potential opponents that we could have. So I do think a lot of the success is due to the strength of the opponent, first of all. Second, as you mentioned, there just isn't as much pressure. The back heels even that Ronaldo was pulling off, in both matches, it's not that Ronaldo can't do those against the top opponent. That's not my point. But I get the sense he's comfortable, in this type of competition. Portugal have already won it. First of all, they've already won the competition. And it's just, it has lower pedigree than some of the others. So what I really like, though, and what I think is most important, is allowing Ronaldo to influence the squad in a way that gives other players space to begin to finally assert themselves. Finally, maybe we can get, the likes of Raphael Leão and Pedro Neto, who's still very new to the setup, and still needs some time to grow into it. Vitinha coming into the squad, but these younger guys to finally come in and make this their Seleção, as Ronaldo is slowly moving, towards the exit where he's going to go at some point. And it's my hope, really, that by the time we get to World Cup 2026, if he is in the squad, it'll be kind of a, emergency break glass, type scenario, break glass in case of emergency, and we won't need him. I won't feel as if we need him to do any of the hard work.
What did you mentioned Pedro Neto, and you also mentioned Raphael Leão. What did you make of them getting 2 starts on either wing, as Roberto Martínez did change the starter up top with Diogo Jota in for Scotland, and then obviously Ronaldo starting against Croatia, but he went with the Raphael Leão and Pedro Neto in both games to start things. Would you anything come away from that?
I mean, it is, in principle, it's the right move for the Seleção. Putting that kind of speed on either wing is just a nightmare for anyone to defend against. Our base formation, our strongest base formation, in my opinion, is still the 4-3-3. And these players have the potential to play that really well. They're both young guys. Neto coming off many, many injuries in his career. He's just now kind of coming into the senior side. I like that they got the time that they did, and it was, I would say I would give him about a B+ performance, over the course of the 2 matches. There were some good moments, Raphael Leão finally making an impact today. His ball, of course, finding Bruno Fernandes for the opening goal, which is a big deal. I've complained a lot about him not being able to deliver that type of ball and even get his head up and find that kind of pass. I think Neto, he certainly showed against Croatia in particular his searing pace, just devastating pace down the wing. That's exactly what this squad needs. The problem is going to be is how do we combine those 2 in tandem with a competent center forward? Is Jota going to be that guy if we're going to sit Ronaldo? Is Ronaldo going to be able to keep pace with those guys? So we still haven't worked that out yet, but I'm comfortable letting these guys grow into the role over the Nations League. It's the perfect environment to begin to get them comfortable with carrying this team, which they're going to have to do in just a few, however long until Ronaldo leaves.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's because of the way the international schedule is, and it's for the majority. I mean, it's happening here in North America where, the United States now, not only do they have like their Gold Cup, but they're also involved in their own Nations League. And then they were also involved in Copa America. So all in all, except for this weekend, especially they had a friendly against Canada. I think the United States plays a friendly against Mexico this week. But on the European side of things, there isn't a lot of games that you can test things out anymore because there are ramifications to these tournaments, and obviously World Cup and European and the Euros the top 2. But if you don't do well in Nations League, you go. I mean, if you like right now, Scotland is in last place. If they finish last, they are no longer in League A and can't be part of the knockouts. They're in League B, and then they can't take part. There's a lot of stuff that whether it's good or bad for the game, that's another story. But there are ramifications to these games. So when you do see, Pedro Neto and Raphael Leão on the field, when you do see, I think Nuno Mendes was excellent these 2 games,
Yes.
Especially with this crossing, the one that found Ronaldo against Croatia, the one that no, he found Ronaldo in both games.
Yeah, today too.
Yeah. So it's that. I think kind of piggybacking on what you were saying on who might be that guy in the middle. I think right now by default it's going to have to be Diogo Jota in terms of who next, right? And I had talked to both you and Eric Vieira, I think on the last episode after the Euros, and I'm like, at this point, I don't feel like you have to have a next one. I just think you have to have a next crop. But I mean, with Gonçalo Ramos out, and I'm just not really set on João Felix up top. I think Diogo Jota is your main next guy, and I think he's very capable of it. So,
but he's injury prone too, though.
Absolutely,
that's kind of the one thing on my mind. It's not that I doubt that he can score goals and create threat. It's is he going to be able to stay fit throughout the course of a campaign? Both for club and for country. That's going to be a real problem. Ramos, obviously, I think ultimately Gonçalo Ramos, if he continues to play well for PSG, can be the guy as well. And he has not shown himself to be as injury prone, but he's young. He's not had his time yet. And I will make the comment, we've had many quality players come into this Seleção over the last few years. And I want everyone to pause and remember how long it takes some of them to get established. Bernardo Silva had excellent seasons for Monaco and then moved to Manchester City, but he really, really struggled for a long time with Portugal. And Bruno Fernandes was the same way. He came into the squad. People still can't stand Bruno, who was good today. Bruno was excellent.
Absolutely.
6 key passes, several tackles, 3 shots on goal, scored the equalizer. I mean, he was good today. But he wasn't good for a long time. He had a really hard time coming into this squad. Ruben Dias is just now beginning to become the kind of guy. He's so good, no one talks about him. He's so good, no one tells you.
Was it not weird seeing someone else wear that number 3?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Oh man,
it's eerie as well.
Yeah,
it's just it's unnatural. It's kind of the way I would describe it.
Yeah.
But it's taken. There is an impatience in the modern game which doesn't make sense, right? And so even though I've been unhappy with Raphael Leão for being so inconsistent, there is a sense in which this is fairly normal for even a very talented player to not be able to stake his claim permanently and produce the output that this squad requires.
Yeah, it's all part of that natural progression, right?
It's just part of the game.
Yeah,
and we forget that. Ronaldo was also, when he was younger, struggling with different things. You could say, okay, well, Ronaldo was an otherworldly talent, so there's some differences. But every young player struggles initially, and so we have to be patient.
Yeah, we are live here on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook as we are taking a look back as Portugal are 2 for 2 so far in the Nations League, the 2024-2025 version of the Nations League, a Nations League, Nathan, that I didn't know until today. You don't have to win your group to get to the next stage. So beforehand, and that's why I think sometimes folks thought this was kind of Mickey Mouse a little bit. But I mean, this is a legitimate tournament. I believe there is a home and away quarterfinal. So to catch you guys all up, 4 groups in League A, top 2 teams in each group make it to the knockouts. The group winner and the second place team get thrown in to the draw, and then you have quarterfinals. You have a home match and then an away match. And then the winners of those quarterfinals then go on a head-to-head, 1 game off in the semifinals, and then you get a final, and then you see exactly what happens. So this sounds much more like a legitimate tournament than it has before, and I credit UEFA for kind of fixing it, because I think there was only 3 teams in the first one, and I believe it was Italy and Poland. Don't quote me on it. And Portugal went 4 for 4, and then beat the Swiss, and then beat the Netherlands in the final of 2019. But this does seem like a more legitimate tournament, just based on the format and everything. So it's I guess for me it's growing a little bit in my opinion.
Well, and that's partly just due to its popularity. The nations, there was a great story from this round, of course, was San Marino, winning their first competitive match ever, if I'm not mistaken. And you have these type of events occurring, it tends to build the sport in places where it has room to grow still. And I think it resonates, what many people forget is Portugal was at one point a minnow. We were considered a nation, maybe much like Scotland or other nations which don't have a lot of footballing renown, and watching them, contend with the heavyweights was a David and Goliath type scenario, right? And so, in the Nations League, you see a lot of that, and there's kind of there's a freedom about it too, because it sits comfortably in that niche of importance, right, just below the Euros. The Euros is just, there's just so much pressure, right? But then you get a team like Georgia, for example, at a pretty good Euros. They crushed Czechia the other day, 4-1. And Czechia have a lot more footballing history. They're not going through a good period right now, but they've got a great history, and it's inspiring from a sporting perspective to create a more involved tournament where you can have these type of competitions, these contests, and see these type of results. And so I think credit to UEFA for taking advantage of that, and also giving these nations a more meaningful way to prepare themselves for the big tournaments too. People complained on end, about all these international friendlies. Well, no more. Now it's the Nations League. Now it's a genuine competition, and I think a lot of you'd have to be a pretty callous person, in my opinion, to not see anything good about this tournament.
Yeah, I think that I think competitive soccer is much better than the alternative. And it honestly, it gives, it's given us as Seleção fans, and I don't know how many Nations League matches Ronaldo has played in, but it's just given us a certain guaranteed number of matches that we probably wouldn't have gotten if these games didn't matter. Both he and Pep, and we'll talk about Pep in a little bit here, but it's just given us more of an opportunity and fans overall, not just Seleção fans, but I mean, another idiot on the team came running on the field at the end of the game where we had a break.
Yeah.
I think it was like a 3-on-2 or a 4-on-3. And here comes this clown rushing the field. And who knows? I mean, it could have been a great pass to Ronaldo that would have been messed up. It could have hurt Ronaldo or anybody on the field. So that's still a thing. But yeah, it is an important. I just feel like there's no harm in it. People are like, you guys won the first one. Well, that wasn't even a real tournament. Yeah, I understand that, but somebody had to win it, so why not us? And you know what? Why not win this one? It's like at this point, like this tournament, I don't see it getting smaller. So it's going to be more competitive games. You're not going to want to be on the losing end of them. So let's go ahead and just embrace it, and see what can be done with these next few group games, and then whatever happens in the quarterfinals, which gets played in March. I think March 20 and March 23rd, but we're still a little far away from that.
Yeah, and Portugal being in the League A, the entire time through every iteration of this cycle too, gives us the chance to play the strongest nations on the continent. This particular draw, we were a bit more fortunate in that, one of the last iterations where we had France and Italy, I believe, in our group. So we were,
I think so.
You're playing a home and away against some of the top nations on the continent. Then you're going into a semifinal and final against other top nations on the continent from some of the other groups. And so in my opinion, there's something to be said. There's no drop in quality every match that you play. That's a good test for these guys as well. So it's a great competition.
Yeah, the last iteration, if you remember, Portugal lost against Spain at home.
Okay.
In that last match, was it the last match? Maybe the second to last match. I think maybe the second last match, because it was the control was then taken out of Portugal's hands. But you have that group, like you mentioned, against France, where again they lost a home game at I think it was at the Luge against France, and they did not have a chance to defend their Nations League title. But I mean, you could be Germany, who I believe is in. Let's see. Oh, no, wrong one there. Anyway, but there are. Yeah, I'm looking at incorrect things, but it's fine. Portugal does have a very quote unquote. It's not easy. They're fortunate that they didn't get paired into anything else. So, by the way, there is discussion in the chat, Nathan. We want to people want to know: are you sitting on the floor or are you sitting on your bed? Because sometimes the analysis it comes a certain way when you're sitting on the floor. Sometimes it comes a certain way when you're on your bed. So I just want to know where are you at, and how is this analysis? How's the analysis treating you here?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm on the bed this time. Normally.
I don't know, guys. I don't know.
Normally, I find a nice, comfortable spot on the floor. You just need a place to think. That's really all that it is, And
I got you.
I got two little sons in the house as well, so I have to find a nice, quiet place where I'm hoping that they don't come busting in the door asking questions while
it's all good if they do.
It can happen.
It's all good if they do. Don't you worry about it. We're talking with Nathan Motz here of Portugal.net. We're talking about the Nations League matches that Portugal have played in to start their Nations League campaign for 2024-2025. They are up top on 6 points, followed by Croatia and Poland with 3, and then Scotland with 0 points. I had Tom Kundert on the last episode that I did, and it was in between the Euro final or the end of the Euros for Portugal, and obviously this one here, and it was all about Pep. I thought that Portugal and the Federation nailed the swan song, with the one exception is that I am a Benfiquista through and through. I do wish, and I know this match was already set in at the Benfica Stadium. I really wish this last goodbye would have been at the Dragão, but hopefully he gets that at some point wearing the Port shirt. But I was wondering how they were going to be able to give him the homage that he so richly deserved. And I thought they did a really, really good job, and I thought it was a class effort by the Federation towards Pep.
Yeah, and that tifo was just beautiful.
How do you make something like that? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just extremely creative and just heartfelt. And how do you do it the right way? I mean,
sure.
how do you say all that should be said? How do you do what all should be done for a player like that? And I kind of agree with you in the sense we would all love to see him, in his home stadium in the Dragão in Porto, of course. But I love the way he went out on his shield too, though, against France, to go out to ball out in his final match against France, as he did in the Euro 2016 final.
Sure. Absolutely.
There's something about that that's magical as well, and you kind of have to just feel the goosebumps rise as you talk about it and just say, man, it was perfect. Okay, it wasn't quite perfect. We would have liked to have won, but it was beautiful nonetheless. And so there'll never be enough tribute. There'll never be enough gratitude for what he's done, for the moments that he gave. Even sitting at home watching him play, and him and Ronaldo in particular, just these titans of football, to do what they've done for so long, it was just a joy to be able to see that. And so it's a wonderful tribute, and we'll miss him dearly, all of us.
Absolutely. And Luciano there with the comment here, if you're watching on YouTube, happened during the 3rd minute of the first match for Port. So I appreciate that. I don't watch as much Port soccer as I probably should, but I appreciate Luciano with the information there. So for me, I think this was kind of like these two matches, I should say, is kind of a microcosm of where we are with this national team going forward, where it's, Is the competition good? Not as good as it was in the World Cup or in the Euros, granted. You can only play who is ahead of you on your schedule, and you have to figure out who it is that you're going to be able to rely on in these matches coming up, because you have let's see, you've got 4 matches left in this Nations League, 2 in October, 2 in November, and you have, of these 4 matches, 3 are away. The only game that is left to be played at home is against Poland. That game will be at the Dragão on November the 15th. So when we reconvene for Nations League once again for Portugal, it's going to be Poland on the 12th of October, and then the rematch against Scotland on the 15th in October. That's going to be in Glasgow, and then the Poland match will be in Warsaw. So, there's still much work that needs to be handled here by this national team. I do think that you'll see a lot more of João Palhinha, I think, in these next 2 games, given the opponent, especially against Poland. I thought it was it was a very offensive tactical decision by Roberto Martínez at the half against Scotland, where he took off Palhinha. He took who else did he take off?
Neto,
yeah, and then it was Ronaldo coming in for Neto, and leaving João Palhinha off the field. That your tactic is about to go completely different. And someone mentioned in the chat, I thought Ruben Dias played very well coming off the bench today. And that's another player that has kind of taken the William Carvalho role in terms of the questions of why, or I guess being unappreciated. And I've sometimes echoed that myself every once in a while. But I thought to give I wasn't going to talk about him simply because it wasn't on my show notes. But I'm glad someone did mention it, and I do think his name is worth mentioning, especially today, because I thought he was very positive coming off the bench at the beginning of the second half, obviously along with Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, and a very different player than Palhinha as well. And my frustration with him has been that he is not as aggressive a shield in front of our back 4, which, aside from the aforementioned issues with replacing Ronaldo or complementing Ronaldo or whatever, the back 4 now is a significant area of concern and development as well, given that Pepe is leaving. And I want to talk about that too, because we saw in these 2 matches, clearly Martinez is working that out, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gonçalo Inacio, playing the first match against Croatia. And then today we saw Antonio Silva. And some very interesting takeaways, from both of those players, I think. But, there's also, even back to the Euros, and yellow card issues aside, I get the sense that Martinez is not completely sold by João Palhinha for some reason. And I'm not really sure what it is, but if I had to pick something, it would be that Neves is a better passer. I think Neves he's got a long range passing acumen that Palhinha and really very few players have. And if you have 2 wingers like Neto and Leão, and you have a fulcrum, a point man, a deep line playmaker, almost like an Andrea Pirlo type, that can be a huge advantage running a 4-3-3, but it has to work defensively, right? And so I think we should be careful not to interpret too much, given the fact that this was Scotland. There isn't maybe enough threat on the counter there to provide a more comprehensive assessment of how he did today. But I will say, at this point, pleased that he was able to come in and I think help the team accomplish its objective and win the match.
Anything we can take from Inacio being the first one getting called, and then Silva getting the game today, given that and I want to be very careful because I don't want to sound like I'm disrespecting teams, because I sometimes feel that as much as I love this national team, I think when I take a step back, sometimes I think as a fan, and because that's what I am. I host a podcast, but I'm no journalist. I'm no member of the media. I sometimes feel like I might be too attached and too emotionally invested in this team to kind of take a step back and be like, all right, are we as good as we think we are or we hope to be? But going back to what I was going to ask here, is there an indication, or did you see any indication to think that maybe Martinez has kind of already leaned a certain way, given that it was Inacio against Croatia and then Antonio Silva against Scotland?
Yeah, and I want to be careful that I don't trigger some kind of club tribalism or rivalries here in these comments, but just full stop. Gonçalo Inacio at this point is a better player. I don't think it's wrong to say that. I think Antonio Silva has maybe more of an upside. I'll get into that later based on what I saw today. But Inacio, the more comfortable, the more competent center back. I think maybe the more suitable pairing alongside Ruben Dias at this point, playing for a sporting team which are dominant in the Portuguese league at this stage. And we've seen in Antonio Silva a player who, even going back to the Euros, maybe due to his age, maybe due to the fact that he's brand new to the side, I don't know, but he's made some pretty big mistakes. He made some mistakes today as well. There were also some good things that he did. There was one passage of play. He carried the ball and drove into the left side of the penalty area and very nearly got off a shot. It was a really nice, aggressive play from a center back. You'd love to see that.
But then there was also a play. There was also a play in the second half where he's on the right side near the touchline on our third.
Yeah,
and he loses it while trying to dribble out as well. And it's like, it's funny though, because, and not to interrupt you here, but when his stardom kind of started skyrocketing about 2 years ago, we can all pinpoint the game against Juventus when he debuted for Benfica. I thought at the World Cup in Qatar, he played very well.
Yeah,
I do think that, and Benfica will agree with me here. The quality of play, both at the club level and now at the national team level, has dipped a little bit. I don't think it's concerning, but I do think that it is one of those things where it's not going to always come easy, and he's going to have to figure it. He's going to have to figure that out. But I do agree with you. I think Inacio, if I had to be like, all right, who are we going with, Inacio or Antonio Silva? I think I would be much more comfortable with Inacio playing with Ruben Dias. But I also think you could give some other players a shot there. The kid who's playing at Chelsea that got his first call up, Vega. Why not? I don't think that spot that is next to Ruben Dias is anywhere close to being solidified yet.
Yeah, and the thing is, we've talked about there's a proper amount of time it takes for a player to adapt to the level of senior international football. And I think both Inacio and Antonio Silva both have some room to grow in that, especially Antonio Silva, though. And additionally, I would say that for that position, center back, if you look at all of the top center backs, with Sergio Ramos, even Pepe, how about Jose Font, who matured much further along in their career than, say, a central midfielder or a winger. You need an intelligence that comes from experience at that position that I think is really only available to some of the older players. And so it's to be expected that a young guy would be, making some mistakes, and hopefully we'll be given some patience and still some more opportunities to kind of get through some of that. So I think Silva's going to be an important player for us. It's just going to take him a little longer. And for now, I think the trust maybe against the more competent opponents is going to be put with Inacio. But, there's Thiago Diallo, who I want to say switched clubs again. He was in Serie A. I'm not sure if it was one of the Milan clubs or Juventus, but He's bounced around a little bit, was formerly at Lille alongside Jose Font several years ago. I'm looking at, him possibly to become a more well-rounded player. But yeah, you're right. There's still a chance for some young Portuguese center backs to come into this squad and make it better.
Yeah, Thiago Jallo, he ended up going to Port this summer.
That's right.
on loan. So
which I like. I like that move.
Yeah, obviously there's definitely a spot to be filled there with Pep retiring and not being there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, I think, and I see some of the comments in the chat, the 3 debutante call-ups didn't see a sniff, right?
Yeah.
And I get that too.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to call up, because what it was like 25, 26 players. Not all 25, 26, well, with the exception of the goalkeepers here, because they very rarely a second or a third unless there's an injury there. But you're not going to be able to get everyone in. And I also think the game is going to dictate that as well. If these happen to be 3-4-0 with about 70 minutes left, I could very well see getting those young players capped. A guy like Pot, who came in, I think, at the last minute in the Croatia game. You didn't see Francisco Conceição. Francisco Conceição. Francisco Trincão. He didn't get any burn. So I think you still have to treat this as, this is competition football, not friendly football. And, I think their time is coming, but also you kind of want to see how they gel, how they react with, being in a clubhouse and in a locker room with so many already made guys, for a lack of a better term,
No, yeah, I think it's still a big win for these players to be in the fold and be available for Roberto Martínez to observe them in practice. We forget international football is only convened every few months. You get this collection of guys together, and imagine you're Martínez. You're trying to build this squad out for the future, and you have the amount of talent that the nation of Portugal has just spread out across all these leagues, all across Europe. How are you gonna assemble that? You're gonna have to call the guys up into the squad, and it's not a foregone conclusion. These guys should see the pitch. Yeah, this is the Seleção. You shouldn't enter the squad thinking, oh well, I've been called up, I should get to play. I think it's just an opportunity for them to show the manager what they've got, and if they continue their club careers, continue to build at that level, they'll have a chance someday.
Yeah, and and there are names that were not called that gave these players that opportunity. Danilo wasn't called; he just recently moved to Saudi Arabia, as did João Cancelo. Mateus Nunes was on the European squad, was not called this time. Chico Conceição just moved to Juve. So there's definitely there's still a pipeline, which is a positive to have. It's just, I think the balance there is, trying to integrate when it makes sense, not just for the sake of integration. And I think you can integrate first on the practice field, given the ages of these players as well. And then, I think Ronaldo, who, Cristiano Ronaldo seemed to have like just a big smile on his face like this entire window. And I'll take that every friggin' time. But I think it was the kid from Sporting, Giovanni Kenda. I guess he was very gun shy, according to Ronaldo, about coming up to him and saying hello, whatever. And it's that kind of stuff that you love to see as the veteran, kind of going up to the young kid, be like, hey, you're part of us right now. But even if that kid doesn't put one foot on the field and get capped against Croatia and Scotland, he can take that as like, all right, this is something that I could be a part of. And the guy who's been the mainstay for the last 20 years just, kind of opened that door for me a little bit. So I think it's a good experience for these guys to get in at the very least in that clubhouse, in that locker room, and learn what it is to be a professional on a national team at the senior level than what they've done, obviously, heading up through the youth ranks.
Yeah, absolutely. It expands the talent footprint of the squad for future generations. It's a wonderful move to have a player like Ronaldo lead that. People complain about Ronaldo for all kinds of reasons, but I don't see how you can complain about that.
Absolutely.
Scored over 900 goals, is available to mentor, these players who, that they may or may not make it in their careers. We put a lot of sometimes undue expectation on a lot of these young guys. Bruma comes to mind. Bruma, when he was at Sporting before he went to Turkey, it was an incredible talent. And then he moved to Turkey, hurt his knee, and just now is kind of coming back into kind of on the edge of the squad. He never really made it in his career the way that some thought, but that's all right. Just building a framework for this national team to endure, I think is one of the chief responsibilities of any manager, and Roberto Martínez is doing that.
Yeah, I think we'll end there. 2 matches coming up here in October for the Seleção, both away. It'll be October the 12th against Poland, and then October the 15th against Scotland in the return match there. So there's still a bunch to play for, just 2 games in to this Nations League, but obviously 6 points out of 6 points is just the way you want to start things off here. So cool. My cousin João, Johnny Tosh, up in Canada saying hello. And this might be with the exception of you and I here, Nathan, this is I think has been a Canada exclusive for our folks up in Montreal and in Toronto. So all the best to the folks up in Quebec and the Ottawa provinces and everywhere that either watch us live or catch us on the YouTube afterward, and then obviously on all of our podcasting platforms. But I greatly appreciate everyone listening. Nathan, appreciate your time here, as we were hoping to do this a little earlier, but I was still too far away from home to get going here. But any final words from you before we get out of here?
Yeah, just a reminder to all Portuguese supporters. Rome wasn't built in a day.
This guy, look at this guy.
After the Euro 2024 disappointment, we have much to look forward to. A lot of good players coming into the squad. Expectation management, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be okay. We're going to have a good campaign in the Nations League, and I've got a good feeling about where we're going as we build towards the World Cup 2026. So out here, thanks for having me, Danny.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Always appreciate your time. Guys, that will do it for us here on episode number 95 of the Seleção podcast. Of course, we are a proud partner of Portugal.net and of Palma Media. My thanks once again to Nathan Motz for making some time for us here on episode number 95. You can follow him on Twitter at Nathan Motz. That's NATHANMOTZ. And again, we're 6 for 6. Ronaldo scored 900 and 901. We're big in Canada, and we're hoping to crack the continuous 50 or 48 states here in the near future. But as always, Força Portugal!